off, I would like to just draw your attention to the disclaimer that's on the screen at the moment and highlight that what I will discuss and share today is of general advice. Before making any decisions based on this presentation, you should sort of assess your own circumstances or consult a financial planner. We are talking through some case studies today, so to protect the privacy of our clients, we have changed a few of the details and, of course, their names. I wouldn't mind stepping you back to a couple you helped a few years ago, Liz and Henry. And in a moment, the slide will come up onto the screen with a short description about them. And they were pretty much doing the same. They were sailing through life, not really focusing on their finances or their money, what position they were in. Had, good jobs, had both been nurses. And then they sort of started to hit a bit of a stumbling block where they were. What happened when they came to you?
Yeah, so they came in to see me basically on the recommendation from their superannuation fund trustee, which had recently classed Henry as totally and permanently disabled through his mental health illness, which he had been on an income protection payment for a little period of time. It was then determined that he wouldn't return to work ever again.
Okay.
So they came to me on the back of, Henry has some health issues, but financially things had changed significantly. They dropped in income, they'd received a lump sum into Henry's superannuation, and it was really about what do we do now sort of thing, or where to next for them.
Yeah, sort of that realization, that moment that, all right, we now have this money. What do we do? Where
Yeah.
do we go
Yep.
to from here? And how are we probably going to make that last? What was their financial position like when you met them?
So the financial position, as you can see on screen, ages sort of the mid to late 50s. But as you said, they'd been coasting along or traveling along, and everything was going okay until it wasn't. And it was circumstances beyond their control that then changed things. So health. So superannuation, Henry's superannuation there looks quite good, and it is.
Okay.
On the back of the TPD, the total and permanent disability insurance lump sum makes up a fair proportion of that. Liz's superannuation balance, again, there is quite good. She had been contributing through her employer as well as voluntary contributions under the scheme that was with her employment.
Yeah, and look, actually,
Yep.
sorry not to talk over you there, but Liz actually has quite a healthy balance, which is not always, typical for
Correct.
women, especially when they did have three children. So I envisage she did sort of spend time out of the workforce. So they were really in quite a comfortable position with their super.
Yeah, so fortunately, their contributions over a long period of time had led them to this position that where the Henry circumstances have eventuated, they do have some options available to them, and a lot of people don't. But
Yeah.
in this case, they did. Liz is, still working. Henry not. So there's an income gap there that needs to be looked at. They're currently renting, so they had sold their home a few years prior, which got them out of debt. Their cost of living, we can see there, living beyond their means, and they're not the only people out there to be doing that, in particularly currently with the cost of living, and also importantly to note that they still had a couple of their kids living at home, university, starting out in life as well, that they were trying to support as well as themselves. So there was certainly some options to look at, but also some issues to address as
And
well.
I guess when I look at this on paper, it feels very flat, very generic. That is the numbers. What is it they were trying to do? What were those goals? Because
Yeah,
that's where you start, isn't it?
well, it is. Financial planning is essentially where finance meets life, and it's for us. It's then to work with clients to help understand what's really important to them, because it's not all numbers and portfolios and what you can earn that is really important. It's what can I do? I want to do these things, and where financial planning comes in is looking at, well, these are the things that you're wanting to do, and this is the financial planning that needs to get in place to be able to look at, can we afford to do that? Can we achieve that? Or how do we do that? So it's trying to make that sit. And for Henry and Liz, their key goals was that they're wanting financial security, and part of that was, we want a home to live in, to get out of the rental cycle. But beyond that, they wanted to, make sure that they had income coming in, that they were still able to meet their needs, and the
Enjoy
ideals.
life.
Yeah,
Continue to
and
enjoy life.
do some travel. So it was just about identifying those goals, working with them to work out what's important to you, and where can we go from here.
And I guess too, weighing them down was also they were facing into, Henry's health issues. So that was probably, am I right, clouding their judgments, their thoughts.
Yep.
Are these goals unachievable? Where do I go to from here?
Yeah. So whilst they had money come into their superannuation, they were left with what do we do? Because we hadn't planned for this. And
Well, Henry's never working again. So this is
Yep.
a sole income family now.
Yep. So whilst you've got the financial elements, you've also got a health condition as well that is weighing on them. And the finance can easily, as we know, add to, mental health pressures and stresses and the like. So there's a lot of emotions in there, and the underlying was fear of what's next, sort of thing.
So if they hadn't come to you, what was their future going to look like?
So we can see here on this chart, this is what we illustrated for them as part of modelling to look at if, as a baseline, we simply used Henry's superannuation to replace the income that was no longer coming in.
So
And
can I just clarify that the blue block there, assets, you're talking about that asset is their super?
yeah, so the green bars are essentially income that's being drawn each year.
Yep.
The blue that sits behind it is the asset or the asset levels. And as we see that over time, they're decreasing until it gets to a point where sort of mid to late 70s, those assets are gone completely. And they're looking at living on full age pension, and that's it. So that is a huge decrease from their current expenditure. So this was quite confronting for them to see.
Yeah, I can imagine. And for me, you're halving your cost of living in an instant at those later years in life where you were hoping to do your travel and relax and enjoy things. I think that would be hard to anybody to actually see, especially too, just looking at that chart. That shortfall happens really early in life, and we know people are living longer, thankfully, and especially women. So I know if I saw this, I'd actually be quite afraid. I'd be scared about what I would do. Were they in a similar spot?
Yeah, because as I mentioned, this doesn't include their big goal of being able to purchase a house. So to see that if they were continuing to go as they are, that's not even factored into this, that we're going to leave a shortfall. It was a good visualization for them that we need to change, or we need to put something in place.
Yeah, almost like a bit of a reality check. They were feeling anxious before and wondering if they could do it, but seeing this in the whole card, hard facts, must have been really daunting. All right, what did they do? What did you recommend they do from here?
So as you can see there, discipline today for a comfortable tomorrow. So that really speaks to, we need to take control of what we're doing for our future benefit. Take control of what we're doing today for our future benefit financially. So the first thing we looked at for these guys was establishing a cost of living and what they're spending their money on, before we can then look at tying this in with their future goals and where we can achieve things there. But to look forward, we've got to really have a look at what's going on currently, but also what's been going on. So for Henry and Liz, it was around understanding where their money is currently going and working with them to look at areas that, you know, the expenditure can be cut back a little bit, or they can be diverting funds into, you know, different areas for them, because it can be a bit of a sobering experience to have a look into your bank statements and credit card statements and see how many direct debits you've got going on, and look at ways that we can sort of trim them down and make that a little bit more responsible going forward.
So you're not telling me you're being the fun police, are you?
No, because look, to an extent, you have to rein things in, but it's like if you try extreme dieting, you're going to return to your to where you were. So it's got to be sustainable. So for that, you've got to have allowances in your budget to do some fun things. Otherwise, the fun police is not where you want to be.
So what type of things did they look at? What were some simple things that they first identified? I'm looking for hints probably here for myself at the moment, but what did they look at?
Well, for them and probably people in general, it's probably been documented over particularly COVID times where we're all at home and streaming services went through the roof, and you can get direct debits for 5 different services that you're not really going to use, and things like that. Takeaway, eating out, those sorts of things that you go, okay, well, it's important for us to still socialize with people, but how much are we doing that? Or the Uber Eats, it's just all too convenient to chuck it on a card and away we go, sort of thing. So again, it's looking at if our future is important to us financially, then we've got to have some discipline today to be able to make that achievable down the track.
Yeah, and I think what I like, Luke, is you're talking about that financial future, but it's an actual goal that they're working towards. So, all right, they went back, they addressed their budget. What was their future now looking like?
So the next part of that is, budget was number one, and then working out a sustainable cost of living, to then tie in with the big piece was, the tangible piece was, we want to look at being in a position to buy a home. So this chart sort of looks at the work we did in looking at reducing their cost of living. I think it was around 30% that we looked to say, wow, okay, well, we can do the things we want to do, spending 30% less, because remembering that we're not necessarily saving through incomes. It's looking at, we've got Liz's income and we're looking to generate an income for Henry from his superannuation. Now the home, we had to make some trade-offs. So when we're discussing goals-based advice with clients, and where you've got a number of different goals, sometimes that those goals are working against each other, and it can be a case of, as we've got on the slide there, you can have anything you want to a degree, but you can't have everything necessarily. So it's prioritizing our goals and working out, well, what's the most important goal, and if we spend this much on a home, it doesn't mean that we can sustain our lifestyle, but if we give a little bit on both, can we make it work together? And this is what we looked at. So whilst they wanted to buy a home straight away, we had the lump sum in Henry's superannuation. The purchase of a home was deferred for a couple of years, and purely because when Henry was to access his superannuation under the age of 60, there's significant taxes that are at play. So the cost of a home would have been an additional sort of 20% by taking money out of his superannuation before he got to 60. So we looked at deferring that to when it's tax-free. Yep, they'll continue renting, but reduce their spend along the way. And then we can see that, okay, if we did that, we can look at the home living a bit further out of, from the CBD, but we can have a sustainable lifestyle in retirement as well. So we're sort of ticking a lot of boxes here.
it's a lot of boxes. That was exactly what I was going to say, because the number one goal has been achieved. We've had to look and face into our reality where we were at, but I feel like you've sort of set them up now for beyond just that first goal. It is that long-term future, the saving and the spending habits that they were learning and working towards to focus for that goal is going to sustain them through their retirement. And you made that point of drawing out by delaying the purchase for a few years, they were in a better position from a tax point of view. Now, if they hadn't spoken to you or sought that advice and sort of jumped straight away into the market, then obviously there were consequences there. So that real value of having those conversations with an expert is invaluable in my mind. But I just can't get over one thing on the chart, and I keep looking at, is that their income is going to sustain them for a long time past their life. So maybe something that wasn't raised at initial as a goal is it looks like they will even have something a little bit left over for those kids. You know, that is something we often always want as well. The home, the security of themselves, and income.
That's it. Yeah. Financial security is a huge weight off the shoulders for a lot of people. Having that peace of mind, particularly when you're faced with a massive change and uncertainty, and you're looking for direction as to where to go next.
And for Henry, it can only be a bonus, considering he was already experiencing some issues with his health in that space. So that's fantastic.